Welcome back to the Significant Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Rogers. Today's guest is someone who sits right at the intersection of athletics and education, Dr. Greg Lott, Director of Athletics at Otterbein University. In our conversation, Dr. Lott takes us back to a single sentence from his freshman orientation: learn as much outside of the classroom as inside it. That idea shaped his entire path as an athlete, a coach, a scholar, and now as an athletic director. We talk about helping athletes understand the place of sport in their lives, the reality of identity and balance, and the incredible range of experiences within Division III itself, from programs that are just trying to compete to those built to win at the highest level. Greg was officially announced as Otterbein's Director of Athletics in July of 2023. After a successful tenure at Denison University, where he led the Institute for Development Through Sport and served as Associate AD and a faculty member. He holds a doctorate degree from The Ohio State University with research focused on emotional intelligence and the mental health of student athletes. Before moving into administration, he coached at the NCAA Division I and the Division III level, mentoring, conference championships, a national champion, and also he competed himself as a Hall of Fame All-American from Dickinson College and later as a professional athlete with Team USA. He now serves nationally and internationally in coach development, including work with the NCAA, the True Athlete Project, and British Gymnastics. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe at CoachMattRogers.com for weekly coaching and recruiting tips, and check out my new recruiting blog while you're there. And be sure to come back for part 2 on the Significant Recruiting Podcast dropping this Monday, November 11th, where Dr. Lott and I talk about what families and athletes really need to understand about the Division III recruiting landscape. All right, let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Dr. Greg Lott. Dr. Lott, so great to see you. Thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure. Excited.
I want to dive in because I love your track record. I love your background, and your focus is on development of young people and really helping them find their path. And you've done so much work, not only in your academics, but on the athletic side with helping them really understand who they are and their mental balance. Where did that start for you, where you knew you wanted to be a teacher and an educator?
It's funny. I actually can remember the moment where this concept really started to seep into my conscious. I was actually a freshman in college, and I was at our new student orientation. Our then dean of students, Joyce Bylander, she came up to the podium and she said a whole bunch of things. And honestly, I wasn't paying all that much attention. I was scoping out my new social surroundings and trying to figure out what I was going to do that night. But at some point in her remarks, she said the statement that I genuinely hope that you learn as much outside of the classroom as you do inside the classroom. And I don't know why, but that moment, it hit me like a ton of bricks, because I had always thought that I had so much of my development and my education through my co-curriculars, namely sport, but other things as well. And no one had ever told me that it was supposed to be part of my education before. And so when she said that, it just like something clicked, and it really helped me be very intentional with my sport experience at the collegiate level, and trying to use it to become the person that I wanted to become, and try to integrate the stuff that's happening in the classroom with other types of things. And then I guess because I was paying such close attention to it, I started to notice that the learning and growth and development that I was receiving through sport wasn't happening uniformly with all of my peers. I think probably when I started becoming like a team captain, maybe my junior, senior year, I started noticing some of my peers were navigating the experience, not really changing all that much. And it really started to get to me. And I wanted to figure this out. And then later, after I spent some time running professionally, got involved in coaching, and I started experiencing the same things. Or some of my athletes, incredible growth, development, maturation, others, not so much. If only they could do this, then all these other things would happen. And every coach I talked to, same kinds of conversations. They bang their head against the wall. Man, if I could just get this one person to do this thing, they would really excel in the classroom. They'd really excel athletically. And really it got to the point to where I decided to put coaching aside and go back and try to study that phenomenon within my PhD. And so it's really been something that started as a collegiate athlete and has spawned into something that's really taken over my professional life.
Isn't it amazing if you talk to anybody our age, and I think we're around the same age, but I think when I've been telling stories to my kids, my son and daughter, and I've been telling stories to the kids I work with, and I'm having these memories that are popping up that I haven't thought about in 25, 30 years. The impact those things had on me and who I am today. And I haven't thought about it, but it equates so easily to the development of me as a person.
For sure.
With the work you've done on your doctorate, have you figured out some paths that we can get kids on, especially when they're athletes? Does it bother you when that's their life, that's their identity, is just they're a runner, just they're a football player, a basketball player? Do you encourage them to get more engaged with the community, or is that enough just being on a campus and being a student athlete?
I really don't. There's a lot of layers to that question,
Yeah.
I guess. So first, let me jump in and say, at Otterbein, in this particular context, I really don't like for our student athletes and the particular teams to feel siloed. I really like for them to be visible, be part of campus, really be trying to engage all the different types of things that they can while they have this opportunity as a student. But I will say that's maybe what I personally believe in and value, what I think is right for most of the students here at Otterbein, but maybe that's not the case in every context. I genuinely believe that it's important for young athletes. And honestly, they can really start doing this, I don't know, middle school, junior high, into high school, somewhere around that age. They can start exploring their values. And as they grow, they can really start thinking about the nuances of those and how they want to prioritize in relationship to those values. And I don't ever want to be kind of administrator that tells people what they need to value and then tells people what their experience needs to be like. I think it's really important that people come to grips with the place of sport in their lives. And it doesn't have to be the same for everyone. And so I really try, because I work with so many different athletes outside of Otterbein too, with my mentorship in the True Athlete Project and my work in the community with the Granville Rec District and things like that. And when I have these conversations, I try to get people to think about what they value, what place sport is in their life, what they want that to look like. And then they have to realize that there are ramifications of those decisions. And I don't mean positive or negative ramifications. I just mean if they decide that they want sport to be X, it's going to impact them in these ways. And they need to be okay with that's part of that decision process. So while I don't think, going back to this identity question that you asked, I don't think that it is ideal by any means for one's identity to get very wrapped up in their sport. I'm fully cognizant that if someone has aspirations of playing at the highest levels, it really needs to be a substantial part of their identity. There needs to be lots of other supporting things, but I can't be completely idealistic and say, hey, if you're going to be an NBA draft pick, basketball can be one of the many things that you do, right? It doesn't quite work that way. And so I think that we just need to be able to be honest and have those kinds of conversations.
Yeah, I agree. And I didn't phrase the question really well, but you handled it much better than the question was. You're a professional runner. Let's talk a little bit about that. Where was your mindset in that transition from college to being a professional runner? Because I don't know if there's a lot of people out there that understand, you know, what a professional football player is, a professional basketball player. What does a professional runner look like? What's that day to day? And how did you make that transition?
To be honest, it was a tough transition for me to move from being a Division III collegiate athlete, where it was all about the team essentially, to now all of a sudden, if I was at a meet, I could walk off the track and it wouldn't impact anybody but myself. My agent would be pissed at me, but it wasn't going to impact team standings or something like that. And I was amazed at how much more selfish I needed to become to start to excel in that space. I didn't like it. It was one of those kinds of things that I wanted to see if I could do it. I wanted to have that experience, but I only did it for 2 years. Got to the point I came up short for the U.S. Olympic team in 2008. And I had to then make the decision, do I give it another 4 years or not? And I just didn't really want my existence to be that selfish, that focused, that wrapped up in that one particular thing. And so then I made the decision to move on. But that was me. Like I said, I enjoyed the experience. I valued it so much and what it did for me, but it wasn't what I wanted long term.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think we're all healthier when we're a bit of a Renaissance man or woman, where
Yeah.
where we kind of have the best of both worlds. We can have our professional life, we can have our personal life, we can have something in between. And I think the more we're able to get out of our own way and get out of our own comfort zone, the, just like your professional experience, the more you probably grew and you figured out who you are. You figured out it's okay to be selfish sometimes.
Yeah. But yeah, Matt, I will tell you, right? Some of my teammates, they were incredibly happy with track and field being their life for as long as it could be.
Right.
And so for some of them, I don't know that they would have been as happy like backing off their sport. They wanted to put everything into that, and they wanted their existence to be that professional athlete. And that's okay too, right? That's
it
what
is.
I'm talking about when you have to explore those values and what you explore what you want your life to look like in the place that sport plays in it.
Let's talk a little bit about D3 because there's a lot going on. And I know your president's starting to play a big role in the D3 President's Council.
Yep.
And I think we've been working towards this. What makes the D3 landscape so unique in your eyes? And I think you can be that kid that says, I'm all in with my sport. I know I'm a D3 athlete. I know I might not be on the athletic scholarship, but I'm going to ride this as far as I can. If I can play overseas, if I can get an agent and get a contract somewhere, I want to do this. What does that landscape look like today? And where do you see it going to be a D3 athlete?
Gosh, well, where I see it going, that could be a whole podcast.
I agree.
What's really unique about Division III is just how much difference that you find within the division. And that's what I think so many people outside of college sport they're not aware of. There really are some Division III experiences that maybe the programs, the coaches, the student athletes aren't all that dedicated. When you look at that bottom quadrant of the division.
As hard as that is for you to say, because you're so respectful, there's a huge amount of truth to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I think that for the most part, if you are a moderately successful high school athlete, you could find a place to continue competing at the Division III level somewhere. But on the other side of the coin, the top quadrant of Division III, man, it's tough. We had where I'm from, the player of the year for boys basketball in his conference. So one of the top players in a handful of schools was having trouble landing a spot at the Division III level when he was pursuing the basketball program, Otterbein or something along those lines. You have to be a top level player to be able to be recruited and find a spot on the better programs in Division III. And so you just have this varied mix of resources, whether that's like operational funds, coaching staffs. There are institutions that may not have full-time coaches in some sports. And then there are some that have 3 or 4 full-time coaches for a particular sport. And all of that is within Division III. There's roughly 450 schools, just under, within Division III, which is more than Division I and II combined.
Yeah.
And so there's just such incredible variation, and like understanding that landscape you can't blame people that aren't involved in it to not know, but that's really, I think, the most unique thing about Division III. And there's certain principles that govern all of Division III, but trying to get everyone in complete alignment sometimes can be challenging. And the experience of a Division III athlete could be vastly different from one institution to another.
In my experience, I'm the perfect example of that, because when I was an AD for the first time at Maryville in 2002 or 2003, I was the only full-time person on the entire athletic department.
Wow.
My secretary was part-time. My head coaches were part-time. When I took the job, and I changed all this because I barked and yelled until everyone was me. But I don't think I had a head coach making more than $12,000 a year. And I was head men's basketball coach as well as AD trying to do this. So to your point, I think if you're a kid, if you're a family and you've got a teenager that wants to play in college, part of this conversation is thinking about, do you want to be a small fish in a big pond? Do you want to be a big fish in a small pond?
Yeah.
Do you want to walk into some place and go, I'll create that legacy, or do I need to walk into a place that's already got a legacy created? And then there's 90 different versions of that in between, right?
Yep.
So I love your take on that because it's so important for families to embrace what college really is. And there's a different color. There's a different range for everybody that wants to go into. So don't think D3 is D3, right?
Correct.
So-
It's funny. So I've got a son that he's in 8th grade now, and we brought last year, his 7th grade basketball team to an Otterbein game.
Nice.
And it's funny because like 12, 13-year-old kids have a certain perception of what college basketball should be like, of what Division Is, of what Division Is. And so when the team got in the gym, said, all right, guys, I just want you to go underneath the basket where our team's getting ready to warm up. And I just want you to walk. I want you to see what the bodies are like. I want you to see what the athleticism is like. Just let me know what you think. And so they're over there and they're watching our guys that are like, 6'8", 6'7", guys that are jumping out of the gym, coming through, doing all different kinds of crazy dunks and just knocking down 1 3 after another. And they're looking over at me like, oh my gosh, this is not what we expected. And so to be able to say, yeah, like, this is a good Division III basketball program. And so if you all are thinking about playing in high school, thinking about playing in college, this is a good way for you to start learning what the landscape is like. And yeah, if you want to be a college basketball player, you got to work your tail off. It's not just, it's going to happen.
Yeah. But what's cool about that is that doesn't probably happen. The size and the elitism of your program, of your athletic program, it probably doesn't happen the way it does if you don't have certain things in place, if you don't have a certain budget in place, if you don't have certain staff. You look at the Otterbein athletic staff directory online.
Yeah.
It looks like a Division II program.
Yes.
You are well-funded. Your president makes sure you're taken care of, speaks to the board on how important athletics is to driving the entire university. So full-time assistant coaches, having athletic trainers that can travel with your teams. How much effect does that have on your head coaches knowing that you're supporting them?
Yeah. And I try to be honest, though, with all of my head coaches. So you can't just say, oh, I expect you to win a national championship. I expect you to win a conference championship. You hit the nail on the head where resources do impact what your ceiling can be. And I'll be perfectly honest, some of my sports are better situated than others in the overall landscape. When you think about location, the type of sport within our conference, facility, coaching staff, things like that. And it's really important as an athletic director to be able to have those transparent conversations with your coaches about what you expect from them holistically, but winning, competition, recruiting, all that's a part of that. And so, yeah, I'm doing my best to try to help each coach keep moving that needle in the right direction and keep being able to pursue the top end of their sport. But you also have to be a realist, and we're funded nicely and we have good resources, but there are also those that are funded better with better resources.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. You look at the Hopes and the Illinois Wesleyans of the world and the Washington universities, and some of those schools have endowments that are in the billions with a B.
Yep.
So if you're a school that has an endowment that's $100 million, that's fantastic. That, you're doing really well if you have $100 million endowment, but you're competing against schools that have 10 times the money. So we talked about the differences in Division IIIs within that division. It's the same thing within your department. There's certain things that you can give to certain sports that you don't have the ability to give to other coaches in other sports. Right. And that's just the reality of athletics. Talk a little bit about, because I'm building an athletic department right now for a college that's starting athletics. So
very cool.
I'm going to pick your brain on this, and I'm actually going to be hiring a cross country coach and a couple of soccer coaches in the next month. So this is a great conversation for us to be having. When you're thinking about hiring a new coach, Where does it begin with you? What are some of those things that you're like, I've got to have this. I want to make sure I don't have this. Are there anything like that immediately comes to mind?
Yeah, it's, I think, a different kind of a conversation when you're starting from scratch
Yeah,
than when you're not,
for sure.
because I may make a completely different hire depending on where that particular program is situated. And I'm talking just the culture of that program, the competitiveness of that program, the robustness of the roster in that program. And right, so I always try to ask myself, I try to step back and look without bias. Like, what are we working with right now? Do I need some? Because realistically, I can get a coach that's really good in an area. I can't get a coach very often that comes to me that's exceptional in every area. If they were exceptional in every area, they would be able to demand the salary that is, I'm priced out of that market. So I've got to step back and ask myself, do I need someone that is an exceptional recruiter, that can drive relationships in high schools, that can talk to families, that knows the best way to connect with all the prospective student athletes, and can cultivate their social media in a certain way that's really attractive. So they've got this kind of like marketing PR type feel to them. Do I need someone that is a great tactician, someone that has a lot of pieces, but they need to be able to put those pieces together in unique ways, essentially that can outcoach the competitors between the lines? Do I need someone that is a cultural builder, that the culture may not be in a great space, and they've got to have that kind of background that can really try to establish the values and can establish the behaviors that are associated with those values and is great on the accountability side of things.
Right.
So I always try to say, okay, what is the primary skill set that I need when I'm making this hire? And then I start there and kind of work backwards and look at the strengths and weaknesses of different candidates. And I always try to target as well. If I've got a head coach opening, I'll start to get into my network, or even I just try to keep a good handle on the landscape. And I may just straight up cold call someone and say, hey, I've heard these things about you, like these attributes that seem to be really strong with you are exactly what I'm looking for in this role. Can we have a conversation? So that's how I go about it. I think if I'm in your shoes and I'm starting something from scratch, it's going to be probably number one factor of, can I get people in the door? Can I make this thing exciting? Am I more, I don't know. Am I more outspoken, outgoing? Am I a connector? Can I just get some excitement going here? Because I've always found that you need some kind of like a critical mass on a team to start exciting better players. It's tough to go out and get that stud player right off the bat. They need to be able to come for a visit and say, oh, that's a fun group. I may be the best player in that group, but I want to hang out. I want to roll up my sleeves and get to work with this group. I want to go be a part of it. So if you're starting from scratch, you need to have someone that can build that initial group from which to build.
You're right on. It's great because you're confirming the way I was thinking, because as an athletic director, I always put more weight into college experience than anything else. But for these roles I'm hiring now, I'm really diving in. Okay, who are the top club coaches in that area?
Yeah,
Who's got their hands into a couple hundred kids, runners,
exactly.
soccer players that
Yep.
will want to come with them because there's already a reputation there where we
Yep.
can build from there. So I'm thinking about that differently than I ever have before as a
Yeah,
hockey.
for sure.
Yeah. So I love that. That's great. That really helps me. And I think it gives families and high school coaches some perspective too. And I love the fact that you're pipelining and you're sourcing and you're not just vetting applications. Because I think that's where athletic programs stop growing, when the hiring people aren't going out and going, yeah, I've been hearing great things about this person. I'm going to give them a call. I'm going to see what their thoughts are on our program. So I love that. Give us some things that you're doing with your coaches to help them grow professionally.
Sure. This is something that's crucial. We ask so much out of our coaches, but most coaches aren't really taught how to facilitate deep engagement with an experience in a way that has particular outcomes. At least they're not taught in a formal way. They figure it out. Maybe they see other coaches do it, And so I think it's really important to help coaches learn really how to get their athletes to be intentional with thinking about their sport as a mechanism for growth and development, how to teach them to think abstractly about how to do things differently, about how things might translate into other concepts, to teach them how to experiment with those and of those thought exercises, to create mental models of, okay, I'm going to try it out in this way. I'm going to try these breathing techniques to help calm my heart rate before I shoot foul shots. And then I'm getting ready to go take a test or go have an interview. Maybe I can try the same things there and then teach them how to reflect upon those. That didn't work so well. Maybe I need to go about it in this way. And so I think it's important to really arm and equip our coaches with that. And then likewise, because we ask so much out of them, it's really important that we give them support. We give them access to one another. We try to cultivate ways that they can interact with one another, learn from one another, because a lot of them they just have such expertise. They're so great in some areas and they're so busy. There's not a lot of natural opportunities for them to engage one another and share that and help. Specifically at Otterbein, we've put together head coaching pods where we match and group up and they have the autonomy to decide we want to meet over lunch, or we want to meet over coffee or things like that. And I'm not very prescriptive. Every now and again, I'll throw something at them and say, hey, here's a thing. Like, I really want coaching pods to talk about the ideal on-campus recruiting visit. And I want us to try to create some commonalities with how we do that here. But more often than not, use the space in the way that you want it, that you need it. You can put someone on the hot seat, like, ooh, this coach does this one thing really well. We want to just pick her brain and learn everything we can about it. Or someone may be struggling with an interaction with a player or a parent, whatever it is. And so they have the opportunity to say, hey guys, I need this time today. I'm gonna talk to you about an issue that I'm going through and just any advice, any guidance that you all have. So they can do that. We have a resource bank where people can throw in podcasts, books, images, whatever, something that they've found meaningful, impactful, inspirational. And so if they want to grab onto that, they can. And oftentimes it's about things that don't even seem like they're sport specific, but can really create some great conversations about work-life balance, about prioritization, about things like that to just help them flourish as human beings in this coaching environment. So the head coaching pods are big. We also do like a consistent curriculum for our younger coaches, our GAs and things like that to really just help them learn in areas that they just haven't had a lot of exposure to yet. And it's of course open to any coaches, but mandated for the newer coaches.
It's awesome because if you're not thinking about your people that you have below your head coaches, if you're not helping grow them, you're really hurting your long-term pipeline to replace head coaches.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah.
Oftentimes that's your easiest hire is that assistant coach that's been there for 5 to 10 years and already knows the kids, already knows the system, already is rolling down that road you want to stay on.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what, like on the other hand too, I want everyone that works in my department to know that me personally and Otterbein structurally genuinely wants them to be able to pursue whatever their aspirations are in their field. And so we want to help with that growth and development. And if it's to be the best coach they can be at Otterbein, that's phenomenal. But if it's to open up doors to a different level or whatever it is, that's fine too. In fact, I just gave a professional development session for my GAs on interviewing, getting your foot in the door.
Where'd you go, coach? Awesome.
I had some of my full-time coaches that wanted to come into the room. And I started off with, I hope you all know, I will not be offended if you come to me and say, oh, this is the phenomenal opportunity, whatever, down the road.
That's so great.
Because if we get the reputation of really trying to help our people develop and pursue what it is that's important to them, and that's out there, more people want to come work here. They want to come coach here. And it grows the tree, the pipeline, whatever you want to call it.
Coach, you've been so great with your time, and I know how busy you are. Let's end with some advice to younger coaches out there that want to coach at the college level and want to make that jump.
Sure. It depends on where they're coming from, right? It's probably a different kind of advice if you are just finishing your career as a collegiate athlete or professional athlete, and you want to transition into coaching, or if you're coming from the high school ranks or something along those lines at the club level and you want to get into college coaching. I'd say you've got to figure out how you want to brand yourself. I know that sounds, I don't know, maybe not authentic, but you need to decide, are you the person that wants to be known as an educator? Are you the person that wants to be known as a recruiter? Are you the person that wants to be known as whatever it is? And keep developing holistically the best you can. As our earlier conversation explored, I try to look for something specific based on what I need. And it's really good if you can come into an interview and say, I do a phenomenal job at helping student athletes excel in the classroom. And here's how I recruit the type of people that do that. And here's the structures that I put in place. And that's the thing I care most about, or something different, right? So I guess like figure out your brand, your niche, do your best to start connecting with as many people as possible, help them get to know you. There's coaching conventions. You'd be surprised. Here's like an untapped thing. How many college coaches are very willing to let new coaches just come observe practices? And so that's a huge opportunity. If you can identify 3, 4, 5 programs that are in your area that are doing well, and reach out to the head coach and say, hey, this is really cool. You've had this success, or I've heard you've been doing these things in your programs. I'd really like to learn from you. Would you mind if I came and watched a practice and picked your brain a little bit before or afterwards? 97 times out of 100, they're going to say yes. And if you get a no, you just move on. But that starts to open up a lot of doors. It starts to help with your own knowledge base, just meeting people, and they're going to introduce you to people. And also, if you get into an interview and you can talk about, I observed this coast and this coast, and they do this thing well, but here's how I put my spin on it. Now, all of a sudden, if you're an AD, you're like, ooh, okay. And that person's hustling, they're getting after it, they're trying to learn, they're reflecting. That's the kind of person I want to bring into I'd really encourage young coaches trying to get their foot in the door to do that.
I told you this was the last question, but I'm going to ask a follow-up to this one. What does the cover letter do for you when you read it that says, all right, the resume is important?
It's huge. And this is actually one of the things that we just spent a lot of time talking about in that professional development session that I just mentioned. You would be amazed at how many cover letters I get that I can tell they just changed the name, like whatever. Like maybe it was to Illinois Wesleyan and now it says Otterbein, and then send it off. Matt, I don't know, at least 65, 70% of the cover letters I get are like that. For jobs. At a minimum.
Oh, that hurts my soul to hear that. But you're not trying. You're not caring about where you're going.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm saying probably 2/3 of apps that come in, that's the case. Probably 99 times out of 100, I push those aside and don't engage them unless I know that's a person that I want to engage with. But even then, like all of a sudden they've got a strike against them as I started to review that. I would say that like for a cover letter, just put in your homework and think about what is it that institution is trying to do, that athletic department is trying to do, and that program does uniquely. And how does that connect to you as an individual based on what you care about and what you bring to the table? You need to show that you are a good fit for this role, that you want to be at this institution. You want to learn from this coach. You want to be in this program. That's the kind of thing that makes me say, okay, all right, I should take this person seriously. So that's that kind of like that personalization, that care, that homework has got to be number one. Then number two, I need to see how they're marketing and branding themselves. What is it that they want to be the thing that sets them apart? And there needs to be a couple sentences that jump off that paper and say, okay, like that's the thing that makes this individual special. And if I don't see that, that gives me pause. What kind of self-awareness do they have? Are they really a good fit or are they not? And I have to start then really doing some digging versus if they at least can initiate that conversation about what they're going to bring to the table uniquely. And then you also touched on that notion of, I really do appreciate this one in a cover letter isn't like a non-negotiable, but I do appreciate seeing something that shows they don't think they know everything. They have confidence and belief, but they're still trying to hone their craft and get better as a human, as a coach. And right, that's to me something that's really important, especially because of the culture that we're really trying to build here at Otterbein.
I love your points of research. And I think it's so important the other side of that. Because there's been so many times over the last 30 years that I've applied for a job, and in doing my research, I've said, no, I'm going to stop applying for this.
Yeah.
It doesn't,
For you.
I'm going to fail here, or they're going to make me miserable, right?
Yeah.
Their value system doesn't match with mine.
Yep.
It goes back to what we were talking about, all the levels of Division III. Every school has a different value system. Every school has a different purpose. And I try to tell kids this. I go, okay, maybe you're Christian, but do you want to go to Bible study every Wednesday and have a dress code, and you can never have a boy or a girl in your dormitory after 8:00?
Mm-hmm.
You might be Christian. You might like going to church, and your faith might be important to you, but are you willing to sacrifice some of those things that you wanted out of a college?
Or do you appreciate some of those things?
Or do you appreciate that? And that's what you want, right? So I love that. And I think that's such great advice. I don't think we can talk to young people, not just young coaches. I don't think we can talk to young people enough about that journey they're on, about figuring out who you are, whether it's a partner or a job or a career or a culture or a geographic location. You got to think about those things, because there might be the perfect boss and the perfect title, but everything else around it might be terrible for you.
Yeah.
So it's such great advice. Dr. Lott, you are so good at what you do. Thank you for continuing to bring your heart and your soul to your job. Thank you for sharing it with not only your people, but the community and my audience. And you've got a big fan in me, and I'll be cheering for Otterbein. And
Thank you.
As long as you and Dr. Colafort are there, I'm an Otterbein fan.
I appreciate it, Matt. I appreciate the kind words. Thank you.
We've had such a memorable season 2 of the Significant Coaching Podcast, but I keep having conversations that end with me having more hope for the future of college athletics than when we started. And today's conversation with Dr. Greg Lott from Otterbein University was no different. I am so impressed with his focus on human development and the mental health of his student athletes. His commitment to building championship-level programs at Otterbein is clear. But what stands out even more is how he centers everything on the growth of people, helping coaches stay healthy and ensuring student athletes leave the university with self-worth, confidence, and maturity as they step into the real world. If this conversation resonated, make sure you're subscribed at CoachMattRogers.com so you don't miss new episodes and you get the weekly blog of significance. And remember, part 2 of this conversation drops Monday, November 11th on the Significant Recruiting Podcast, where we dig into the Division III recruiting landscape and what families really need to understand about that transition from high school to college. Until next time, stay focused on what you can control, stay humble, and keep chasing significance.